Hey everyone, it's me, Chris from Body Nova Fitness Coaching. So the problem we have right now is most of us can't, we're not able to leave our houses, or some of us aren't going to be able to go to gyms. I know I won't be able to hit the gym soon. I'll have to do it at home. Fortunately, I have my own sort of setup here with pretty much everything I needed, to get good workouts in, but some of you don't. So what I decided to do is I put together 3 bodyweight workouts, and in a separate video I'll have ways to make these exercises more difficult and more challenging in there, or to make the workouts more difficult and more challenging, because if you're a beginner, doing the exercises plain will be good enough, but then if you want to dig deeper, or if you want a more challenging workout and you have loftier goals, you're going to need to find ways to make some of these harder, and I'll show you some of that in another video. Okay, so this first exercise, I have the Bulgarian squat in here. When a lot of people choose to do their Bulgarian squats, they choose something that's too high for them to put the back leg on. So if they're not flexible enough to deal with that, it'll change how they perform the exercise. Like they'll lean too far forward, and if they want to hit their quads, leaning too far forward will make you hit your glutes and things like that. So I usually will choose something for most people that's about 12 inches off the ground. So of course, with this being a home video, people usually don't have steps. So instead of having steps, I have this little plastic file cabinet, or plastic files here. So what I do is I put my back foot up on that. Now you don't want to push. You don't want to push with the back leg. You just want it there for support, so you're balanced. Okay. If you want something more challenging, of course, this could easily be a pistol squat, when you squat all the way down and squat back up. But the Bulgarian, most people can Bulgarian. Anyway, so here we are. Right into there. I usually always try to get down to parallel. Okay.
Maybe stand on the side.
What?
Nothing.
Okay. So stand right down in there, and I'll hit the reps. Now this is a bodyweight exercise, and so it might be easy for a lot of people. So one of the things I usually do with this is I'll perform this, and I'll give myself a time set. So when you do a time set, I'll just say, hey, okay, body weight. How many reps can I hit in 50 seconds? And I'll go to the 50 seconds up, match that for the other leg, and then I'll keep that moving. Okay. All right. Okay, so next here, and you can also do this in a superset. I like to use supersets with a lot of people because you can get a lot of work done in a little bit of time, or the same amount of time, while giving the first exercise in the superset a rest, so it can help your fat loss and your calorie burn and things like that. So anyway, with that being said, this is the Scapula Shrug, they call it. You can easily do this with 2 chairs. I'm using 2 benches here because I'm out here and I don't want to drag the chairs out. So I might take a picture of that later. But anyway, this is the Scapula Shrug. So the thing that you have to understand about this is most of us, we tend to do a lot of things with our shoulders around it. We look at phones, we look at computer screens, we sit in this way. So this is really important to get your posture, to work on your posture and your upper back muscles, so it can help you also prevent some shoulder injuries. Okay. So I'm right in here. Right in there, I'm laying flat, and my whole key is to get my chest up and these arms back as far as I can, squeezing my shoulder blades together. Okay? This could also be something you perform with an isometric hold. Now, if you want to make this easier, because this could be kind of hard or kind of difficult for a lot of people, one of the things you could also do is You see I move my feet a little closer together, then I can come down and it's much easier for me to manage. Okay. One of the other things you can do is, I tend to try to keep this pure because it acts like a reverse fly, and the way the reverse fly makes you work your upper back muscles. Instead of being out here like this, you could bring the elbows down just a little bit and try the same movement. That way your arm is kind of just a shorter level distance between your arm and your elbow and the bench where your elbow rests, and that'll make it a little easier for you to manage. All right, next is the push-up, and the push-up, very basic here. I usually like to keep it flat and have everybody start flat and work their way into doing more reps and things like that. So as I'm down here, simple push-up position, hands underneath me. What people will try to do to make this easier, because they don't want to feel that struggle, is they will try to hunch up and sit back onto their knees instead of keeping all their body weight over their hands, and down and up. Okay, so if this is pretty difficult, it's okay to find a simple way to make it easier. And again, the body is, you're lifting the whole body, so it's like a longer lever with your feet touching the ground. So instead of having the feet, on the ground, you just go from the knees. All right. Another thing that you guys gotta know about push-up, of course you have them flat on the ground, and that's kind of really middle of the road as far as degrees of difficulty. So if you want easier, you keep elevating the surface and you have your hands on that surface. So this is actually easier than being on the ground using a higher surface. So if I put a bar here and pushed, that would be easier than being on that surface, and definitely easier than being on the ground. So that's something to think about, and you work your way down. Usually, once you're getting out here, you're wasting your time. That's incredibly too easy, and you're just gonna, if your best interest is making as much progress as possible, you want some bit of struggle. You don't want to completely run from the struggle. This is going to be the one-legged hip thrust. If it's too difficult, you can always go to two-leg, doing it two-legged. But with the one-legged, now remember, studies have shown with one-legged exercise, so maybe the Bulgarian squat versus the squat, the one-legged hip thrust versus the hip thrust, that you get a little bit better isolation of the muscles, but you have to be strong enough to do the exercise, or it's not going to be any good for you. So as I go with any hip thrust, one of the main things that people try to do is they try to move all of this instead of just squeezing the glutes and moving the hips. Secondly, they don't, I guess maybe they're a little weak in the neck and they don't want to hold their head up. So I usually keep it up against the chest and pin it there and not try to move it. So as I get in here like this, get in my situation, I don't try to keep my back against the bench, because this is bad. This is bad for you, bad for your back. You create more problems in your spine. So I would contract my abs, bring this together nice and tight, and just see my shoulders aren't against the bench until I'm at the top position. Even there, I'm not completely touching. So I hold this position tight, and this allows me to use my glutes more to get up. All right. So this is the two-legged version right here. And I'm getting up and down just by relaxing the glutes and contracting the glutes, and my head follows my body. So if I'm staring at this wall, when I come down, I'm staring at this wall, and I slightly start to stare at the ceiling at the top, but that's because I'm not moving my head, okay? Now, if I get that one legged, it's more of the same. I plant my feet into the ground, I lift this one up, Okay? And all the same stuff applies. Okay, I'm going to put this here so you can see that my torso doesn't really move. It's just all at the hips. Okay? If you want to use the hamstrings more, and that's perfectly fine, instead of just pushing, keeping your feet flat, what I usually do is I push the heels into the bench. Into the floor, sorry. Into the ground. So I'm digging from the heels, I'm right in there, toes are lifted up, two-legged. I just feel like I'm trying to grab the floor with my heels. Okay? One-legged. Yeah, so now we're going to do the pike press, because you've hit your chest, you've hit your back, you've hit your quads, you've hit your hamstrings. So now we're going down into get into your shoulders. We're going from biggest muscles down to smaller muscles. All right. So with so we're going with the pike press. Of course, if you don't have any weights or anything like that, it's supposed to mimic a shoulder press, but we're using body weight here. So the key with the pike press is to make sure that you stay into your position. You have to stay in the pike press because your hands have to be overhead. If your hands start getting in front of you, because people don't like to stay bent, keep their discipline to stay bent, when things get tough, it winds up being a version of the push-up. So why do more push-ups if you already done push-ups, right? Right. Okay, so the original pike press, as you see, I'm upside down like this, and again, I'm at this angle where my hands are actually, even with my head, are behind my head, and I would come down and I push back up in a straight pike. All right. Of course, it can also be done. You can put your feet up. Like I can put not on the bench, because you wouldn't have a bench, but you could have a box or that little file cabinet thing that I had here. Have my feet up, or even bend them. Yeah, so once again, it's really important to stay in this position and not try to lower your hips so your hands get in front of you. Okay, then that's going to be more front delt and chest muscles. You want to try to keep it on the shoulders. All right, so now we want to hit the abs. We want to start with this reverse crunch here. So real important, because when people try to do exercises like leg lifts and things like that, and reverse crunches, what they'll do is they'll let the lower back have an arch in it and not be flat against the bench. Okay, that's going to put a little strain on your low back, and you're not going to be able to isolate your abs as much, okay, because you're asking, with that arch, you're asking your abs to stretch. When your abs do this, and you want them to contract, so you can't have both. All right, so I'm right in here. I make sure before I even raise my feet that my back is flat against the bench. Okay, so I'm right in here. This is the easier version. This version, because most people, when they stretch their legs out, they get that arch in their back, and it creates problems, so we want to keep you safe. So we're right here, and we're not trying to fold at the waist, at the hips. We want to flex the spine, and when we flex the spine, it's either this or it's this, okay? So we're flexing the spine here. And we're getting those reps in. If you want to make it harder, well then again, you might not be able to have the stuff at home to make it harder. I can set that down, and that will make the abs work a little bit harder. Okay. All right, great for your lower abs, great for helping the flexibility in the pelvis to make sure you can protect your low back or get rid of some back issues unless you're too far gone, and that way you should have get a medical clearance before you do so. But anyway, a lot of places on the floor you can do the basic reverse crunch, and when you team it with the pike press, you can use something called escalating density. I've made many videos on, where you can say, okay, I can do 20 reverse crunches and maybe 15 pike presses. So I'll start my first set. Actually, back up. I'll set a timer for 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and I'll perform 10 reps on the first set of the pike press, maybe 15 reps on the first set of the reverse crunch, and I'll keep going until that timer runs out. It's a great workout to build muscle and burn fat, but I'll get more into that subject on another video. All right, so we're going with the manual resistance. That people like to use don't cut it, you know. So at least with this way, if you choose not to have any weights, you can create enough resistance to make your muscles work hard. So with the manual resistance curl, all right. So my hand is my own resistance. So my hand is my own resistance here. So using the left arm, I'm going to be curling with the left arm, pushing down with the right arm. And then, of course, you know, with the other side, if you work this right, you can. If you work this right, you can get a little tricep work in there with the opposing arm, but that's a little difficult. That's you have to. It's real tricky how you get that in. So what I would normally do is I would just do it as an extension and push up, same with the other arm here, making sure you're bending at the elbow, you know, and straightening the arm almost straight.